Welcome to Arcade Chronicles, the show that covers all things coin-op, arcade, and pinball, from the retro classics to the modern moneymakers and everything in between. I'm your host, COE33. My friends call me Co. I'd like to thank you for joining me today on this, the 5th episode of Arcade Chronicles. In addition to arcade and pinball news and discussions, I'll also be chronicling my own personal journey of opening a video arcade in my small Oregon town and sharing that with you every step of the way. So why don't we get right into it with the top news stories of the week. Looks like SEGA Amusements has a new arcade racer that should be hitting an arcade near you soon. It's called Apex Rebels. And this story comes to us courtesy of arcadeheroes.com, a great website and source for arcade and pinball news. I highly recommend you check them out. And according to the article on Arcade Heroes, Sega Amusements, they went ahead and released a press release which says the following. Become a racing pro with Apex Rebels. SEGA Amusements brings you an all-new, thrilling motion game that's a must-have for arcade, FEC, and entertainment operators, delivering a unique racing experience like no other. So racers, start your engines and prepare for an experience your players won't forget. To help them on their journey to become champion, players have the choice of 5 high-octane race cars, each with their own unique liveries and styling features. Throughout the race, players are encouraged to pass through checkpoints which give speed boosts and unlock advanced skills like slipstream, power drift, and aero drift. Aero drift is a unique feature to Apex Rebels, where players can boost through the air, allowing them to effortlessly overtake their rivals. Every aspect of gameplay is designed to be thrilling and encourages a competitive spirit, all in the hopes of seizing victory. The stunning cabinet of Apex Rebels is a showstopper in its own right. Jaw-dropping race cars equipped with a motion base allows players to become immersed in the action, feeling every bump, twist, and turn. With added vibrant LED lighting and eye-catching race liveries, the cabinet is an instant draw no matter where it is in your arcade. The massive 65-inch LED monitor and the huge panoramic LED video billboard displays the leaderboard and track map, engaging spectators to also get in on the action and cheer on their favorite racers. With the power of Unreal Engine 5, Apex Rebels delivers awe-inspiring graphics that are too good to resist. The steering wheel's force feedback combined with a real physics engine provide an authentic sense of control in real time. All these elements come together to deliver an unparalleled level of immersion that keeps players coming back time in and time again. So don't miss this chance to supercharge your location and become a winner with Apex Rebels. Okay, so that comes to us courtesy of Sega. And yeah, I love a good arcade racer. So this is something that I would love to play on location. Now, it's certainly not something that I'm going to consider for the quarter drop, at least currently, because they cost about $18,000. At least that's my understanding. And yeah, $18,000 for a racer? No, that's okay. I think I'll stick with my Cruisin' Exoticas for now. But Sega, I love anything Sega. A good racer, always fun. And especially one that has a giant screen and some motion base, that's always fun. A little movement to the cars. I do enjoy that. So definitely one worth checking out. You probably see this at Dave & Buster's and Round Ones and stuff like that. Family entertainment centers, I'm sure will have this as soon as it's available, which actually I think you can buy them now. So they'll be showing up soon. All right, this next story comes courtesy of Nap Arcade, another great resource for arcade and pinball news. And recently, Spooky Pinball announced their 2 new pinball machines. We're talking about Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Looney Tunes. They did a dual release of both of those. And I will say they both look fantastic. For me, I really like the Looney Tunes just a little bit more. I like the theme. I grew up watching Looney Tunes, and it's something that I actually considered buying for the arcade. I have a Godzilla Premium and then a Jaws Pro on pre-order. I thought a Looney Tunes might be a good addition to the arcade. Nice family-friendly theme, and something I have a lot of nostalgia for. And the gameplay looked really good as well. Well, apparently the holdup on getting these off the manufacturing line was the sculpts. And according to Spooky Pinball's Facebook page, these machines will be rolling off the line and starting to get delivered to manufacturers on Monday, February 12th. So that's very exciting. So if you guys have a pre-order in on Texas Chainsaw Massacre or Looney Tunes, expect to see those getting invoiced here very soon, and expect to see them on location soon as well. Apparently, they were waiting for the sculpts of the Tasmanian Devil and the sculpt of the Leatherface figure from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And there's actually a photo that Bug over at Spooky Pinball in Benton, Wisconsin, he posted this to the Facebook page of him with the two sculpts, and they look really good. I think the sculpts look great. I love the Tasmanian Devil, of course. I think a lot of people said, I wish they spun a little faster. The Tasmanian Devil, he does on the pinball machine, does this real slow spin. And I was like, wait a minute, that's not quite right. So I'm sure the modding community will be changing out that motor and putting something in there where Taz really gets a good, he should be looking like a hurricane spinning around. You want to get a little wind force coming off of him where he's about to take off. So I think that'll be a quick mod to change out that spinning motor if you get one of those Looney Tunes. But nonetheless, these are going to be arriving on location soon, and I can't wait because I want to play both of them. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is not something I would want to buy, but it's definitely something I want to play. I actually just rewatched that movie recently, and it holds up. It's a gritty, kind of in-your-face 1970s horror movie, and Tobe Hooper knocked it out the park back in the 70s with that low budget and just kind of atmosphere for days. And then, of course, Looney Tunes. Everyone loves Looney Tunes. So, yeah, keep an eye out for those coming soon. All right, let's move on to the top 5 portion of today's show. Now, last week we did the top 5 EM pinball machines, and that was a lot of fun sharing those with you. And this week we're talking about the top 5 1980s puzzle arcade games. Oh boy. Okay, now there's a lot of them. There's a lot of great puzzle games that hit the arcades in the 1980s, and I grew up playing a lot of these games. So I certainly, going into this, had thoughts about what I thought would be on the list. And for the most part, that remained true. But there were some surprises because I sat down and I played a bunch of games and I took notes and I was really trying to do my due diligence to make this a good list. Now, of course, this is not the right list. It's just my list, and I certainly welcome dissent in the comment section below. So let me know what your favorite 1980s puzzle arcade games. I would love to hear it. But let's go ahead and talk about number 5, Tecmo. 1986. It used a custom Z80 chipset. We're talking about Solomon's Key. Oh boy, super fun, challenging puzzler that has players controlling a sorcerer called Dana. You must retrieve Solomon's Key and restore the world to light and rid it of all the demons. There's 50 levels, good variety of game mechanics. You got the running, the jumping, you got to break the blocks, you got to build the blocks, and so much more. And this game has been ported dozens of times to just about every console over the years and computers under the sun. But if you ever see this original arcade cabinet, I definitely recommend giving it a try because it's super fun. Okay, let's move on to number 4. Developed in 1989, but not actually released until 1990, but I'm going to give it a pass, okay? So, because I just felt like I had to make the list. We're talking about Clacks, the Atari puzzler that has you catching colored blocks. They come tumbling towards you and arranging them in rows and specific patterns to make them disappear. Initially developed as a follow-up to the very successful Tetris, but Atari at the time was in a legal battle and ended up releasing Clacks as its own standalone game. All in all, I think this is a quirky, colorful, fun puzzle game, which is why it had to make the list. At number 4, Clacks, give it a try. I love it. Okay, number 3, 1981, Taito. I'm talking about Kicks. Taito of America published this puzzler that was developed by a husband and wife team, Randy and Sandy Pfeiffer. And, Kicks is really fun. Oh, and it's not Quicks, by the way. I hear a lot of people saying Quicks. It is Kicks. That is my understanding, but I suppose that's a case of potato, so to each their own. In Kicks, you've got to isolate these portions of a rectangular playfield by drawing lines with a fuse. So you have the fuse, and you're drawing lines to kind of isolate areas of this rectangular playfield. You got to avoid the sparks, and of course the Kicks, who is this kind of abstract entity that moves around the playfield. You got to secure a large enough percentage of the playfield and move on to the next level. Definitely a very unique concept, but once you understand the fundamentals, it becomes very enjoyable and a great puzzler, which is why it made the list at number 3. Okay, number 2, the original OG Brick Breaker, Taito, 1986, of course, I'm talking about Arkanoid. Busting those bricks and moving the paddle-like craft known as the vase is a source of endless fun, bested only by unearthing the many power-ups. So there's the slow capsule, the catch capsule, there's the expand, the disrupt, there's the break. I think there's an extra player capsule. Oh, and my personal favorite is that laser, which lets you blast the bricks into oblivion. Arkanoid and its sequels are all very fun and well worth your time and quarters. Okay, guys, here it is. Number 1, best arcade puzzler. The all-time great, the GOAT of arcade puzzlers. Of course, I'm talking about 1988, Atari's Tetris. Yep, Tetris had to be number 1 on this list. It's incredible. It never gets old. It's fun till this day. Based on the Russian developer Alexei Pachednov's Tetris and adapted by Atari for the arcade and home consoles. To this day, the classic brick stacking formula is as satisfying as ever and inspired countless puzzle games since its debut, which is why it had to be number 1 on the list of best arcade puzzlers. Okay, before moving on, why don't we talk about a few honorable mentions because there are many. Amidar is a Konami game from 1981. Now, this is something I actually played on the Atari 2600 back in the day, not so much in the arcade, but since then I have played it in the arcade and I do enjoy it. It is tough though. Lode Runner, IRM, 1984, and then Blockout, a puzzler from Technos, 1989. So let me know, what are your favorite arcade puzzlers? I would love to hear it. All right, it's that time for radical reading. Each week I will read a different arcade or pinball flyer. And last week I read a wonderful 2-page spread on Elvira and the Party Monsters, the pinball machine, and that was a lot of fun. And this week we're reading the flyer for the game that this whole segment is named after. I'm talking about the pinball machine, Radical. All right, this is a two-sided flyer. Now, on the first side here, you have a guy flying over the Radical pinball machine in his old school 80s skateboard. And you got that amazing Radical font with the red and the yellow, the black border. And I love it. That font in particular for Radical is super cool. And it's such a place and time, that late 80s. It almost has a 90s aesthetic to it with the loud colors, but this did come out in the 80s. And it says radical. It's rockin'. It's rollin'. It's radical. Midway brings you the totally awesome Bally pinball machine where players can enjoy the challenges of the ragin' lip slider ramp, snake run, bust a move mega million, the new exclusive vertical ramp, and many more pinball thrills designed to capitalize on one of the hottest pastimes around, skateboarding. And then it has the Bally logo underneath the pinball machine. And yeah, Radical's one of those machines that's picked up steam lately. People seem to really appreciate Radical, I think, more than ever. It's not surprising. Good theme, lots of ramps, fun gameplay, Bally System 11. What's not to love, right? Okay, and then on the second side, it's a two-sided flyer here. It says "Get Radical," and it's got that amazing Radical font again. And flip over the profits. Long-term earnings strength. Hot special effects with new colored strobes. Outstanding musical score and enhanced speech prompts. Sensational graphics, quality workmanship. Radical is pure Bally pinball. And only Radical brings to players such imaginative features as progressive letter bonus scoring that can increase from 20,000 points to 1 million points. The Bust a Move million point ramp, Skate or Die 2-ball multi-ball play with a chance for an all-new Mega Million scoring that can reward up to 10 million points on a single shot. Innovation on every surface. Radical takes pinball to new heights and excitement with a dazzling array of skate park inspired challenges, including the Snake Run, which can award anything from increased point values to extra ball, instant multi ball, or mystery scores. In addition, Radical features Bally's new exclusive up down self adjusting diverter that automatically guides the ball to different scoring areas so players can experience every curve, swerve, and killer trick. And then there's a screenshot of one of the ramps, and below that it says ramped up for profits. Playfield swirls and twirls. Radical has it all, and then some with the fast paced action and scoring of the tail slider ramp. But Radical offers a new twist with an exhilarating vertical ramp that's an open sided on the edge creation, specifically engineered to give players a thrilling ride each and every game. The time has come for Radical Awesome Bally Pinball from Midway Manufacturing Company. And then you have the Bally logo. And then you have some information below that. 1990 Midway. So this is actually 1990, not 1980. I thought it was 1989, but I was wrong apparently, which makes sense because it has that 90s, that early 90s, late 80s aesthetic to it. And of course, made in Chicago, Illinois. And it's got some phone numbers. And that is the Radical Pinball Flyer. All right, it's that time in the episode where I share my own personal journey of opening an arcade in my small Oregon hometown. No stone will be unturned, no punches will be pulled. This is going to be an honest assessment of what I've done thus far and what I plan to do moving forward. Full transparency here, and starting with the audit. As of filming this episode, I have spent $33,121.11 on my business, Quarter Drop Amusements LLC. I still own 26 coin operated machines, plus the signage and like redemption prizes and all kinds of miscellaneous odds and ends that I'll need to open an arcade. I still have $0 in debt and $218.86 in my business savings account. Not much, but I plan to pivot to saving more this summer. So all in all, this week is totally unchanged from the previous audit because I actually haven't bought anything in the last 7 days, which, that's not a bad thing, right? That's good. So everything's the same as last week. And then the timeline, of course, if all goes to plan, I hope to open in late spring to early summer of 2026. And that can fluctuate. Might be a little bit before that. It might be a little bit after that. I'm going to start scouting locations. I've kind of already started doing that, but it's a little premature to really be scouting locations because a lot can change in 2 years' time. But there are some locations currently open that I have my eyes on that, fingers crossed, one in particular that if it's still available in 2 years' time, that's probably going to be a strong contender for where I put the arcade because I peeked in there and it used to be a gym and they had already retrofitted all the electrical because, at a gym, you have to have all those machines plugged in at one time, and they have the outlets all along the wall and they're like heavy duty outlets, and I imagine like I can just go in there and throw down carpet and paint and make it look nice and some good lighting, and I won't have to worry about electrical stuff. So that could be a real win. Also, the size is great, and there's a little office nook kind of in the front where I can, because I'm gonna be like, not only gonna be doing like office work and stuff, but I'm also going to be live streaming on Twitch from the arcade when I open up. So having a dedicated little office space in the arcade is really nice, and to help people, of course, when they require assistance, they can come up and ask me whatever they want, and I can help them. So that is the goal, and that's the timeline. And as far as recent purchases, there have been none. I haven't bought anything in the last 7 days. The last thing I bought, I guess, was the Cruisin' Exotica, which we talked about last week. Let's talk about a wish list item that I have for the arcade. And of course, there are many. I love anything coin op, arcade, and pinball. I'd love to have every machine under the sun. But yeah, it's not practical. But something that I would love to have. Now, this is a quirky one, guys. Okay. So, I wouldn't expect most people probably hear this and think, what? Why? But if you're a little bit older like me, you guys might remember this. Okay. Back in the day, anytime you went to a grocery store, usually grocery stores is where you see this. but you would see them at pizza parlors and stuff like that. There were these what they called the chicken machines. So these are from like the late 70s and the 80s. And inside the chicken vending machine, there's a chicken, a hen, that rotates on a spindle. And there's eggs underneath the chicken. And you put in your quarter or 50 cents or whatever it is, and the chicken clucks, and the little music goes off, and then it poops out an egg. And you open up the egg, and there's a prize of some sort in there. Now, I have a lot of nostalgia for these chicken machines, and I've been scouring Facebook Marketplace because I want to have one in the arcade. It's not like this is not a money maker. This is not something that people probably would flock to, no pun intended. But it is something that I want to have, and I think little quirky stuff like that, I really enjoy. I don't necessarily like just the standard. I know you got to have the Pac-Man and you got to have the Mortal Kombat. And there's certain games that you kind of have to have, and that's great. I love all that stuff. But little oddities like this really kind of make the space for me, and I hope to find things like that. Now, there was one in Chico, California that I saw on Facebook Marketplace, but that's a pretty far drive from where I'm at in Oregon, and I didn't feel like driving all the way. So hopefully in the next 2 years, a chicken machine will pop up and I'll be able to pluck one up and get it and add it to the arcade and fix it all up and give it a refurb and make it look nice and work well and really think about what I'm going to put inside those eggs to make it a special experience for everyone that gets a little egg and they can enjoy their prize. Now there is a modern variant of the chicken machine. And the one I'm thinking of is from like the late 70s, the early 80s. And you can get this on candymachines.com, which was where I purchased. For the people watching and not listening, I have two spaced out mini claws, and I got those from Candy Machines. I'm filming in my arcade here. And for the people listening on Spotify, behind me are two mini claws. Now, I purchased those on candymachines.com, and they also have what's called the All American Chicken. And this is like the modern version of the classic chicken machine. So I'm not opposed to that. I could see like if I don't find a vintage working chicken, it doesn't have to be working, I can fix it. But if I don't find a vintage chicken machine, I could always get the all American chicken. It's not cheap though. I forget the price on it. It's like 2 grand or something like that. I mean, it's a lot for a chicken machine versus finding an older one for a few $100. That sounds a lot better to me. So fingers crossed. Chicken machine, it's on the wish list. Okay, moving on. All right, let's talk about the next item on my to-do list. Okay, so some of you that listened to last week's episode, you may recall me talking about picking up a second Cruisin' Exotica racer. And so now I have two of them in the arcade, so I'm gonna link them up and people will be able to race each other, which is awesome. But when I was doing the one over on the second Cruisin' Exotica, the one I just bought for $700, it did not have its monitor shroud and had just like some electrical tape, so not cutting it. So I immediately went to eBay and started looking for shrouds, and they're kind of spendy. And I bookmarked a few, but I didn't actually buy one. And I'm glad I didn't because the other day I got a Facebook message from the guy that I bought the Cruisin' Exotica from. And he says, "Hey, do you want the monitor shroud for this?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do." So I drove down there and I picked it up from him, and it's in perfect shape. And I'm gonna go ahead and throw that on there. So, that saved me about $75 because those are about $75 plus shipping is what I was seeing quoted on eBay at least. And that's a lot of money for a little piece of plastic. So I wasn't really thrilled with that. So I don't have to buy that. And now I just have to install that new monitor shroud. And I still have to give the Cruisin' Exotica a deep cleaning. And there's a few things I have to do. I have to link them up together, but that'll happen soon. It's nothing too crazy. It works well. The force feedback works and all that. So that's good. Okay, let's transition into talking about a fear that I have. I like to highlight because, not everything is peaches and roses in the world of business and opening up an arcade. There's fears, there's anxieties, and I want this Arcade Chronicles to be, there might be people out there that are thinking about doing something like this. And this might be a source of information for them. And I would love it if that is the case because for me, I have never had a brick and mortar business before. I've done lots of kind of interesting stuff, and I've always been a bit of an entrepreneur. but I've never actually had a retail location like this. So there's a learning curve here, and I have some fears. And this week, I want to talk about a fear that I have, which is that someone's going to beat me to the punch on this, okay? And they're going to open up an arcade in town before me, okay? Now, that would really suck because I live in a small town. It's not going to support multiple arcades. Um, and I don't think that's going to happen. I really don't. But what if a barcade came in and opened up, next year, or someone swooped in here and opened up a barcade? It would be devastating, right? I mean, I'd have to figure out what I'm doing. I'd have to open in a different town. I'd have to maybe team up with them or something. I don't know. But either way, I certainly hope that doesn't happen. And I don't think it will. But that is a fear that I have. Okay, let's talk about a wish that I have. Kind of the opposite coin of a fear that I have is a wish that I have. And I follow a lot of arcades on social media. I watch a lot of arcade content creators on YouTube. I really enjoy it. I like connecting with them and talking to them. And there's a bunch of arcades I follow that I've noticed that they've done a great job of creating a sense of community. And people are like making genuine friends and having these friendships because of the arcade. And I would love that to be the case at the quarter drop where people come in, they know each other. The kind of cliche is it's like Cheers, the old show, if you guys remember that, where everyone knows your name. I would love that. If people like they make friends at the arcade, they know who's going to be there, and they have fun. They play games together. They put the quarters on the fighting cab, and they fight each other with Street Fighter. They get together. We have the pinball tournaments or whatever it may be. But the arcade is like a hub for community, and it fosters friendships in the local town that I live in. I would love that, and it's certainly a wish that I have. All right, let's highlight a machine that I have out here in the arcade. Each week, I'd like to highlight a different machine. And last week, we talked about Area 51, the Atari shooter. And this week, I want to talk about a machine that we just kind of touched on a little bit. I'm talking about 1999 Midway Cruis'n Exotica. So this is a racer cab. I have two of them. I'm going to link them up together. And the first one I picked up, it was a big arcade buy. It was actually one of the first purchases I made for this arcade. So when I finally kind of made the decision, yeah, I'm doing this. I'm going to open an arcade. It's time to start buying machines. This was one of the very first purchases I made, and I picked it up for $600, I believe. So the first one I got for 600, the second one I got for 700. And I didn't need much. So the first machine that I got, it needed a Snap Hat battery, it needed a starter, a new light for the marquee, a new bulb. It needed what else did it need? Deep cleaning, and it needed a new potentiometer for the steering wheel. And that's it. I think that's it. Oh, and an adjustment to the coin mech. So not much, pretty basic stuff. And I got that rock and roll. And the second one I picked up for $700, and that I didn't really want to pay that much for it, but it matches the one I have really well. And I thought, yeah, this is probably, and also I could get it delivered. The guy was going to deliver it to me, so I was like, yeah, this is a no-brainer. $700 delivered. Definitely. Now I have two of them. That was a big item off the checklist. The to-do list for the arcade was to get two linked arcade racers. Now I still have the Tokyo Drift over here, but that doesn't have its PC in it. So I'm not sure what I'm doing with that. I keep hoping that I'll be able to get a replacement PC for it, but on eBay they're so expensive. I don't really want to spend that much money to get it. If I get a storage unit, the Tokyo Drift might go in the storage unit for now, just to free up room. If I can get it fixed up, it'll go to the arcade as well, but I'm not too worried about it because this can be a pretty small arcade, probably about 1,600 square feet or something like that. And now I have two dedicated shooter cabs, and then I have the two arcade racers. That with all the classics and the pinball machines and the redemption stuff, I'm getting pretty close to having a good amount of machines to open up with. But yeah, those are my Cruis'n Exotica, so I wanted to highlight those this week. Okay, let's move on to a question that came in, and this is a fun one. So I was streaming on Twitch, which I stream arcade and pinball over on Twitch at COE33 if you guys want to check that out. That'd be a lot of fun to see over there. And my name is Judah, who's one of my followers over on Twitch, and a really cool guy and a streamer himself that I definitely recommend checking out. He asked a great question that got me thinking. The question is, what is your best arcade memory? And I would love to hear from you guys. What is your best arcade memory? And my best arcade memory is the very first memory I have of a video game, or it's not only just an arcade cabinet, but a video game in general. So the very first time I ever interacted with a video game, it happened to be an arcade cabinet. So I wasn't at an arcade, but it's an arcade cabinet. Thus, it's an arcade memory. But it was probably 1985, California, probably Santa Ana. And I was with my father, and we were at a diner. And they had one arcade machine. It was a Cocktail Frogger. And I remember seeing this Cocktail Frogger arcade cabinet. And I remember being really kind of infatuated with it. And that's my first memory of playing a video game, of putting the money into that Cocktail Frogger arcade cabinet, playing Frogger, having a good time. And that's kind of what spurred my interest in picking up an NES, which was coming out right around that same time when I played that Frogger. I remember after playing Frogger, seeing those commercials for the NES and being like, okay, I gotta have that. And then, of course, getting a little older, going to arcades with my friends, and it all kind of spurred from that very first memory, which makes Frogger a super nostalgic game for me and one that I have to have in the collection. I may just end up getting a really nice, like restored Frogger or something. I keep keeping my feelers out. I just haven't found the right machine yet, but Frogger is a must-have on the wish list. Okay, let's talk about a design element of the arcade. So each week I want to highlight kind of a different, when you open up an arcade space, it's not just about throwing a bunch of machines in a room. It's about creating a space. It's about designing a space. About creating. It's a whole package. Audio is a big part of it. Color is a big part of it. The atmosphere, the design, all this goes into creating an arcade space. Now, this week I want to talk about what I'm going to call the energy bar. So now, initially, when I open, this is not going to be a barcade. This is going to be an old school arcade. I'm not going to serve alcohol, but I do want to have drinks and maybe some snacks. Now, I don't want to go through, you can kind of skirt around having like food handlers licenses and some regulations by having a vending machine and having prepackaged, so, like snacks and stuff like that. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a couple vending machines. This is the plan, at least, a drink vending machine and a snack vending machine. And I'm going to have those flanking a bar, but I'm going to call it the energy bar. And I already have a sign designed for it. And I'm going to have all kinds of, the classic drinks that you think of, but I'm going to have energy drinks and like coffee and then soda and juice and stuff, anything you could want. And then a machine full of all kinds of snacks. And then on the bar, I have these two wireless phone chargers that mount underneath the bar so that you can wirelessly charge your devices. And so the combination of the energy from the drinks, the energy from juicing up your devices, thus the name Energy Bar, and then the logo of the bar is similar to what you would think of when you're playing a video game and you have an energy bar, a life gauge. So it works on multiple levels. And then on the bar, I'm going to put my Mega Touch. So I have a Mega Touch arcade machine, and you see these a lot of times in bars on the bar where you put in your money and you play the various different games. And I was thinking, well, where am I going to put this in the arcade? And I was like, well, you know what? I'll just put it right there on the energy bar. So you can hang out, you can charge your devices, you can play the Mega Touch, you can get some snacks, you can get some drinks, and have a good time and a place to sit. So it kind of serves a lot of different purposes within the arcade. And then also, it gives me the opportunity to pivot or expand in the future. So what I mean by that is if I'm open for a while and I find that the model that I've chosen to open with of not having a bar, of not having alcohol, isn't sustaining itself, isn't realistic, and I need to serve alcohol, well, now I can make some slight modifications to the setup I have with the energy bar, bring it away from the wall, maybe rope it off a little bit, put a fridge behind the bar, and I can serve alcohol. I have to get the licenses, of course, and everything, but then I can easily pivot to serving food and beer if I have to. Now, I would love it that just a classic old school arcade without alcohol, if that sustains itself and that's not a problem, wonderful. I love it. If I have to pivot to make it work, I can do that. So this is why I'm thinking about having the energy bar be a big part of my location. And I hope people like it. I think it's going to be really cool. Okay, so why don't we go ahead and talk about how you can help support this dream of mine? And really, the best way you can do that is to follow me on the various social media accounts I've created for the arcade. So I'm having to build all this stuff up from scratch, and I'm having a lot of fun interacting with everyone over on Instagram and YouTube. And going over there and engaging on those various social media accounts really helps get the word out. And I appreciate it a bunch. So you can certainly subscribe and like this video on YouTube. That's a big help. You can rate the show on Spotify if you're listening to it. That's a huge help. Follow me on Twitch at COE33 for live arcade and pinball streams. You can check out the content on Instagram and TikTok. That's at Quarter Drop Arcade. There's a community Discord, the Dragon's Lair, where you can engage with other arcade and retro gaming enthusiasts. And all these links and more can be found at my website, quarterdroparcade.com. That's quarterdroparcade.com. I really appreciate the support. And with that down, guys, that is the 5th episode, check, of Arcade Chronicles. Stay tuned for fresh episodes every week on YouTube and Spotify. Thank you so much for joining me today. And until next time, live every day like you're going for a new high score.